All right, everyone, welcome to this week's Corn Belt Umpires Association Zoom Lunch Clinic. So today we're going to start talking about handling situations. But first, I had just a couple notes and observations from this past weekend. And I don't know if everybody has had the opportunity to look at Jesse Devine's umpogram that he sent out earlier today. But there's a couple good things on there that are worth highlighting. And a couple of those things are, let me share my screen. First and foremost, congratulations to those who were assigned postseason. And if we go here, a couple points of emphasis to talk about. First, we have a new fake tag rule this year. So in American Legion baseball, it's very similar to the high school rule now. It's obstruction. So if we have a fake tag in a Legion game, it is similar to high school rules. That's item number one. Item number two is enforcement of coaches wearing helmets. In amateur baseball, high school, and Class A, you do not need to wear a helmet. Now, what is Class A? For the umpires that are on this call, Sioux Falls, Renner, Brookings, Yankton, Brandon. I think I said Harrisburg already if I didn't add Harrisburg. The Class A schools at 16U and below play by NFHS rules. Across the board at American Legion and VFW for Class B, you have to wear a helmet. There is no ifs, ands, or buts.
And that's only, the no helmets is only for 16U. Even
in
Class
A
Legion is playing with helmets.
Correct. So 16U and below for Class A, no helmets are required. Above 16U for Class A, so Junior Legion and Legion, they must wear a helmet. Last thing, I think. A couple weeks ago, we talked about calling time. And one of the things we talked about was we need to make sure that all action on the field stops before we grant time. So we had a couple situations over the past week that I've heard about through the grapevine where we had time get called as a runner was still going to first base after a walk, and it turned into a complete mess. So make sure that we have time given once all the action on the field has stopped.
And how we do that is when they request time before action is stopped. As soon as he touches, I've got you, but you can't go until he touches or until action stops. You can just say, as soon as action stops, I'll grant it. And you just stay where you're at until we do. Because that way they don't think, oh, well, he's going to call time as soon as the guy touches first base. I can walk out there now. Well, then his coach is out there on the mound as the guy, and Dakota Valley is notorious for this, trying to take two bases on a walk. Okay, I'll jog down and sprint to second. So we got to make sure we let them know that we're not letting them cross the foul line until action stops.
Very important that we get that and don't screw that up. As far as mechanics are concerned, make sure we're still using the CCA mechanics, which are approved for use in South Dakota. Timing, make sure we slow down. And I know this was not included in Jesse's umpogram this go around. But one thing that I've personally observed is, and been told by coaches, umpires we're not going to get interference plays. Mainly the force play slide rule is not being called and enforced. Remember, that is a player safety rule. That's not one of those that, I get to pick when I enforce it. You have three options. You either slide, you get out of the way, or you interfere. Those are your three options on the force play slide rule. If you need to review what the rule is, Jesse's got a great guide on the SDUA website discussing the force play slide rule. Call it. I called it twice in one game, and then the coach after the game told me that they've been playing since March and no one's called it yet. Given how that team ran the base pass, I find it incredibly hard to believe that that was the first time that they had a runner go in standing up to a base. Enforce the rules as they're written. And Jesse just said that in the next umpogram, we're going to be doing an even more deep dive on it. And so it's just important that, we enforce the rules because, I come in and I'm going to enforce the force play slide rule as is written. So is Connor. And if the crew before us goes and doesn't do it, now you're setting us up and we're behind the 8 ball now, because we're going to hear, the crew, the crew before didn't do it. Umpire for the next crew. Don't leave something for the next crew to have to go clean up. It's not okay. I know we're going to be talking a lot about handling situations today and ejections. I know we had several over the weekend. I think statistically, just from my unofficial tally, this weekend or this past weekend is always kind of our worst weekend, and sportsmanship kind of goes on the decline after this weekend. Connor, and Jesse as well, any notes, thoughts, starters before we really take a dive into this?
Yeah. I am going to have a conversation with the district umpires and powers that be on the recommendation list of pushing that back further. Because the amount of umpires I have seen this weekend that haven't enforced helmets as a safety rule is really kind of frustrating to me, because it's easy to enforce. It's something that everybody should pick up, and it's not. It's easy to just say, "Hey, you got to have a helmet on if you're out here." That way, because I feel like if you can't enforce simple safety rules like that, I don't want to recommend you to work postseason tournaments, because it's a very simple, basic task. And I have coaches that have said to me every game, nobody else is making us. They haven't been on that field all day or all weekend. And my standard answer is, we have been on this field all day. You can ask every other coach if you'd like. But simple stuff, we have to do this. The safety rules we have to enforce. We don't have a choice in those. Keep people in dugouts, especially helmets, because that's easy. They should all have them. There should be no question about that.
Absolutely. Jesse, any other comments, notes?
To piggyback on Connor's comment, we always get I get it every time I work. We didn't have to yesterday, or we didn't have to last week, or we didn't have to last time. And I'm like, wait a second. I just talked to an umpire that did your game last night, and he told you to put on a helmet. So it's a pretty easy way to expose them as liars, because a lot of times they are. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is they're going to make you tell them every time they're going to walk out, and they're not going to put on a helmet until you make them, rather than just obeying the rule and putting it on from the start. I guess just as a heads up, I talked to one of the Legion commissioners the other day. They made personal phone calls to all the A coaches, at least at the senior level, and all of them have been told by a Legion commissioner about the helmet rule. So if someone says, we didn't really know about it or want to play that game, don't buy it. So And he even went as far as saying, if they don't want to wear it, just throw them out. And then they got to sit 2 games. I'm like, well, I really don't want to take it to that level, but I guess if we have no choice, we have no choice. So
They have 2 options. They can get a helmet and coach, and it can be a helmet with ear flaps or without. Doesn't have to be without. But essentially, you tell them you have 2 options. You can coach with a helmet, or you can not be on the field while your team's on offense. And if they refuse, they're failing to comply with an order from an umpire, which is an ejectable offense. And if they don't want to leave the field and go sit in the dugout, that's their option. That's their choice.
Enforce the safety rules. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. All right, Connor, you want to move on to some situation stuff then? You want to do Jeff's ejection first? Okay. So if you remember last year, we had the esteemed Jeff Henricks, who I do not recall how many College World Series rings he has, but he's on his second hand right now. It's like 6 or 7. So he's on the plate. He's a crew chief here. This is the Chapel Hill Regional a couple weeks ago. And interesting play happens here. So we got 1 out. We got R1, R2. And I'm just going to kind of mute this here quick. And before, we'll talk about the play first, and we'll talk about the situation too, because the situation or the play itself is worth discussing as well. Play it again. Play it one last time, maybe one more. I'm trying to look for one more thing here with this play. So we got a coach on the field screaming. So I believe Jeff was the crew chief for this game, or for this crew and series, I should say. Probably worthwhile to turn the audio on. So the coaches asked the crew to consult here, which they can do. Okay, so let's first talk about, they're talking about, was it high enough? Well, the rule book says that it can't be a line drive or a bunted ball. And so then we got to use judgment. Connor, what do you use for determining whether or not it's high enough, in quotes?
There's a rule book definition on what constitutes a line drive.
Okay. So if it's not that, then
sharp and direct. So anything that's not sharp and direct can be ruled an infield fly. Now, it has to be high enough that we have time to judge whether or not that fielder could have made that play with ordinary effort. And we can always be late to call it an infield fly because it's still a pop fly, right? The runners still have to go back to their base. So, do I have time to determine if that's an infield fly or not? Or if you can make it with ordinary effort. As long as it's high enough to give me time to determine that, I can determine, was it ordinary effort? What do we have to have for ordinary effort? An infielder can make the play with ordinary effort. And on this play, we have a infielder. The infielder is going to catch the ball. Running and sliding. The pitcher can't get there with ordinary effort either. You look at him, he's like, oh, he tracks it and he turns. And that's caught probably halfway between the mound and second base. So he can't catch that ball with ordinary effort. Our infielder, or second baseman, makes that play sliding, or attempts to make the play sliding, rather, and ends up dropping it. So we have a play that cannot be made with ordinary effort, which is one of the tenets of the infield fly rule.
I would add that ordinary effort is the average ability of the average player at that level. And so the way that I look at it, would the average insert whatever level I'm working player be able to make this play? That's how I determine ordinary effort.
One of the big arguments going around the interwebs on this play is, well, the second baseman's first step was back, or the second baseman's playing really deep. It doesn't matter where he's playing compared to normal. It's where is he playing when this play happens? Where is he positioned when this play happens? And could he, from his position, could he have made that play with ordinary effort? Can he make this play without sliding or without diving? Because the shortstop's not getting there. First baseman's not getting there. He can't even make that catch, much less make it with ordinary effort. And
Connor, upon
to the level that you're working, and that's going to change what ordinary effort looks like. Go ahead, Jason.
my question to this is I don't see how there's much an argument for infield fly rule here, but my question is just based on the camera angle. I mean, we can't see it great. It would almost be a better argument for an intentionally dropped ball potentially by the sliding second baseman. Any thoughts on that? Because it looks like he might have it, and then he turns his wrist down from the side angle. You can kind of see it. Just curious if you'd give any thought to that in this play or not.
I mean, when I think intentionally drop ball, it's got to be a no doubter.
All right, that's fair. I was just curious what your thought process was on that.
I mean, I don't necessarily. I see what you see here. But if you think about it, if you're sliding and you're reaching out to catch the ball, like if he's sliding and he reaches out to catch the ball, when he hits the ground, what's his glove going to do naturally? Turn his wrist, right?
Turn. Absolutely have to. Yep.
It's going to force his wrist to turn. It's got to basically be like, I cradle it and carry it to the ground and let go of it for me to have an intentionally drop ball.
Okay.
Or I'm camped underneath it. I'm watching it hit my glove and then watching it hit the ground. You can tell when they intentionally drop the ball based on their body language.
No, I just think that's a rule that's not talked about real often. So it's just something I wanted to bring up and kind of get your thoughts on.
Had 2 or 3 of them this season. So yeah.
I think I've had one so far this season, I think. Yeah, they're an intentionally dropped ball. I think is pretty obvious, and you know it when you see it. And so, if there's not any other questions about the exact play here. Not ordinary effort. I will say that the second base umpire is working not right now, but he's in Omaha right now. And so
he's been ejected at this point.
no, yeah.
and this is the conversation. He comes back out.
Okay, so first I'm going to stop this here. So they just said who he's umpiring with. If you noticed, you got all the base umpires here. The plate umpire is nowhere to be found. And you'll see why here in a minute. At the college level, you eject and you walk away. Okay. And so the plate umpire
At
in this
at all levels, eject and walk away. Your partner has the duty to handle the coach or player after they've been ejected.
Yes. So plate umpire ejects here, crew takes over. Which is why you don't see the plate umpire here. I believe he was up the line a little bit more. And now we got, I believe that's a college. I think we had contact on that.
No, we had continued arguing.
Oh, I was prolonged. Okay.
If there was contact here, Brammer would not have been anywhere near him after that happened.
Good
I
point.
think the Tony Vitello Tennessee coach ejection a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
There's contact, you point, that's contact, and bail.
I can show that one next. So here's the ejection now. Jeff just says no more. So he got a warning. Plate umpire said no more. And then he got tossed. That's pretty easy for someone to come in and back you up after the fact. That coach left that crew no choice but to remove him from the game. Any thoughts or comments on this one, Connor? This is a pretty straightforward. Crew handled it really well.
If you watch the video where it's not choppy, you'll notice he gets warned. He keeps going, and Jeff says, "You don't want to do that." And he keeps going, and Jeff says, "No more." And then he keeps going. So he gave him a lot of leash in a big situation. And he continued to stretch it. That's all I got on that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Your Bach video, I think you have that at your co-host. You can pull that one up. Go for it, man.
Yeah. Give me a second here. So we're going to talk real quick about how to handle situations that come up when coaches don't get to argue them without being ejected. Okay. Now there are a lot of them that you can kind of sit there and go, okay, well, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. But a really good way that I have found, at least, to handle these, as soon as I figure out where I put them, is to escort them where they need to go. So when your conversation is over, they're where they should be. You are where you should be, or they are where they should be, and you can bail. Let's see here. So here in a second, I need to share this. I think this is the correct one. I don't think there's sound. So I'm U1. So there's two plays. There's that play, no issue. This is April in Aberdeen. So it's nice and cold. We're wearing jackets. Sorry, I must have grabbed the wrong clip. Or the first balk, right? Or first pickoff. They think it might be a balk. They don't really say anything because the batter or the runner had no issues. They definitely stepped towards first base. So now we get a pickoff. And the third base coach decides to come on the field. Now, in this point, look at where I am. Okay. I am over here talking to the first base coach. So handling one coach, discussing the play. This coach comes out in the field, visibly upset, throwing his arms out. Somebody, ideally the plate umpire, because this is a two-person crew, is going to address this coach. Okay. NCAA rules right now, the coach has to go to the midpoint of their foul line, and I have to go to them. If that's not the case, we still need to make sure this coach gets addressed for two reasons. Number one, they know that their behavior right now is not acceptable, right? We can't yell and rant and rave and throw our hands up and have histrionics going on while discussing a call. Number two, that alerts me that he's got an issue with this call. Okay. To this point, I don't even know if he's coming because I'm over here talking to him. Okay. So this is a balk call. We can't argue balk calls, but we can get explanations. So you three run straight by him. Doesn't even address him, nothing. Okay. Plate umpire calls time, realizes that he's out there. The moment I see him coming towards me, I start walking to him. Okay. I address him as we're walking, and I start talking about the play. And as we're talking about the play, I am walking him back to his foul line. Okay. We're having a discussion. We're talking about the play. I give him an explanation. He starts to repeat himself. I run away. Okay. I'm basically saying, hey, I gave you your explanation. We're done talking. If he decides to follow me, you would say very simple. This is your warning, right? To continue, you will be ejected. Then he gets to make that decision. Would anybody have handled that any differently? Before I told you how I handled it, would you have handled it differently? How many of you are going to let that coach get all the way to you before you have the discussion on that ball call? Good. Anything else, Jake?
No, I think on that play, it's pretty straightforward. There is a way that you can intercept a coach without appearing quote unquote aggressive in your demeanor. So I think I think you handled that really, really well. Got a comment here. Yeah, that's, if you can talk about something like that at the plate meeting, especially at the lower levels, that's fine. The big thing that I would tell you is I would emphasize that we want to make sure that all action on the field is stopped before a coach would come out on the field to question a call. And then making sure that as a crew, we get the ball put out of play when it's appropriate. Any other thoughts on that, Connor?
So you made the comment, there's a way to approach coaches without looking aggressive. Tell them how that we do that.
What do you mean?
You said in your comment talking about the video that there's a way to approach coaches without looking aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do that? How do you want them to do that?
How do you do it? How do I do it? I just walk. I casually walk over. I'm not gonna run over to a coach. because you had video and likely there's no audio. And so if I'm gonna go to a coach, I'm just gonna walk over and try to get them to, meet me halfway.
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question. So if I'm the play umpire, I'm going to say, hey, Dean, don't go any further. He'll come to you. Okay. And part of that's this game. That's what we're supposed to do because we have to meet him at the foul line, right? That's what's supposed to happen right now, or the last 2 years for NCAA baseball. In high school baseball, I'm going to say, Dean, what's your question? Or address the coach by the first name. Hey, what's your question? And kind of distract them because we don't have a call per se, right? We have a no call. We're calling that play a legal play. So I'm going to interrupt the coach and hopefully reset his thought process and going, I can't be mad because Connor's trying to talk to me and I'm not mad at Connor. I'm mad at the first base umpire. And I'm gonna interject and say, or I might just say, Dean, that's a really good move. It's close, but it's not there. Or whoever, Jeff, you might be right, but I didn't have it on that one. I had a clean step first. Right? So find a way to interrupt them and tell them why that play was legal. Because ultimately, whether or not that's a balk kind of falls on the first base umpire, but a lot of it's on the plate umpire. Because if you think he's going downhill, you think he's coming towards you, you have to have a balk there. Where you can see whether or not he stepped to first base or whether he stepped home very, very easily at the plate. So just find some way to explain to the coach what you had and why it's legal. And maybe that calms him down a little bit. But the most important thing here is if we let him get all the way across the field, what do we have? We have 2 coaches and 1 umpire. And we should never be 2-on-1. So we should always interject and help our partner out in those situations. Or say, Dean, what's your question? You want to talk to Connor? Okay. Hey, Connor. And that way I know that I need to leave the coach I'm with and go address the head coach. Now, the assistant coach in this wasn't being disrespectful. He's asking the rule. We were talking through the fact that there's not a 45-degree line or 45-foot line for a pitcher's balk. We were having a very productive conversation, I felt like. I think we disagreed at the end, but we were having a conversation about it, not an argument. But anything we can do to alert the fact that we need to break away from this coach and come deal with the head coach will work.
Great question. Any other questions kind of on those as far as situation handling goes on either of those 2 plays? As I probably can find another video or 2 that we could kind of walk through here quick. All right. Faith, are you actively on this call right now?
Yes, sir.
Should be your batter interference with
Yeah, let's go through that one.
Cool. Let me pull it up here quick. Connor, you've seen this batter interference, haven't you? So a clear batter interference here. Now, Jason, remind me, do we have contact on this play? I don't remember.
Yes, we had a catcher's hand hitting the brim of the helmet on the follow through.
So couple things here before we really get into the discussion. We have contact. You establish that there's batter interference. You point at the runner or you point at the batter, you call him out. I'm on the bases. I'm grabbing R1. I'm sending him back because by rule, we're going to return all runners. This right here, I know Russ and Dan aren't here today, but when we circulated this play, shortly after it happened, this was one of their huge comments that they really liked. You're doing your job here. You grab baseballs, then you acknowledge that, Corby's coming down here. Casually walk over and just have a conversation with what you saw. And, I'm out here in B, and I can tell just from your demeanor and Corby's demeanor too, that this isn't anything that I need to go get ears on as the other guy. Nobody was hot. So if I start walking, from here over into here to try to listen in, well, that could easily throw, gas on the fire and escalate a situation.
Yeah, then Corby feels like we're 2-on-1 in him instead of, we talk about how we don't want coaches to 2-on-1 with us. We feel it. He can feel like we're having a 2-on-1 with him there, which could raise the temperature in a hurry, as you said.
Yeah, and we got to look at the video. From the video, and I've known this coach for years, and he's always been the consummate professional. And just by his demeanor, I knew right away. Okay, he just has a question. He's not coming down here to argue. He just wants to know what's up, which is totally fine. They have a right to come and ask that question. And I mean, he's walking away casually. You gave him the answer. Yeah, I think this was handled really well. Connor, any other comments?
I don't know what Dan and Russ said because they wrote like 17-page emails. But one thing that I think we can do to clean this, can you go back to this so that just after the play happens?
You just tell me when to stop it.
So I think, Jason, I think if I were to give you any advice on this play, it's boom, strike. Okay, that's interference. That's interference. So masked, left hand, whatever you want to do. Point. Let Jake walk through, right? Make sure everything stops. Walk out in front of the plate. Watch Jake's call. Because if Jake has an out, we have nothing. We have interference that we ignore. Let me correct that. Because if the initial throw retires the runner in NCAA or MLB rules, right? American Legion, UFW all play MLB rules. We have nothing. We're not getting the batter out unless it's strike 3. Okay. If the runner's retired on the initial throw. So he's not, at least I didn't think he was, right, Jake?
Oh, no, he was safe. He was safe at second.
Okay, so he's safe at second.
Yep.
So we point quicker, right? So boom, yes, that's a swing. That's interference, right? Now we take our mask off. Walk out in front of the plate. He's safe. Time, turn, point back. That's interference. You're out, right? I don't know, like your hand placement, Jason looked like it was kind of down around your waist. Get it high, right? So he's out. And then you help award base runners. The base runner can help do this too, but if you do it, it looks like $1 million. So if you back it up and play that through one more time so people can kind of see what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Back up like 10 seconds. Okay.
But we'll start right here. So we had the strike.
Plays over to tell people we have interference. All right, so we're boom, that's a swing. Okay, we judge his interference. That's interference, right? So point down. You can take your mask off if you want to. Depends on the play for me. But boom, yes, it's a swing. That's interference. Jake saves him. Time, step out, point to turn and point to the batter. That's interference. You're out. Point, you first base. I think that's mechanically that comes with time and somebody critiquing how you present that situation. I don't like, clearly Corby's like, yeah, I get it. I understand what you have. But if we clean that up, no coach really has an argument there. They come down, coach, he made contact on the follow through. Oh, okay. But you look like, it's all about presentation, right? And believability. And if you handle that all by yourself as a plate umpire, you're going to limit those discussions. And you can even say, contact on the throw down, that's interference, or that's interference, contact on the throw down. That's interference, he's out of the box. Right? But anything you can do to help communicate to coaches before you get to that discussion point, the less ammunition they have for you.
Well said. Any other comments, questions on some of this type of situation handling here?
A quick one for you guys. You'll hear one of two things on a situation like this or a no call. If they see the batter basically step on home plate, they want it automatically called interference. And then the other one is, well, he didn't touch him. There was no contact. It's not interference. Obviously, neither one of them is automatic, but I guess just elaborate on that if you would.
What I tell coaches, it's a strict liability offense. Impedes, hinders, or
Right.
Impedes, hinders, or obstructs the catcher's ability to make the throw. Okay. Contact is not, that's why I say it's a strict liability offense. The batter impeded, hindered, or obstructed the catcher's ability to make the throw, period.
That's actually exactly what the coach came down and wanted to talk. He said, "Are you sure there was contact there, Jason?" I said, "Yes, I am sure." I said, "But even if there's not," I said, "if that's exact," I used same verbiage you just used, Jake. I said, "If he hindered or impeded that throw in any way, even if there's no contact, we still have interference and he's still out."
I walk in front of you in the middle of your throw. Is that going to affect your throw?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a pretty easy one. Yeah. That's a great point, Jesse, because so many coaches do believe that just because, well, there's no contact, you can't have that. Yeah, we can.
And it's not just in the batter's box, it's everywhere. Well, he didn't run into him. He didn't touch him. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. Well, he still had to run around him. So you still have a hindrance. Like you said, impedance, hindrance. And that's a tough one for them to grasp. And honestly, a tough one for a lot of umpires to call is like, well, he didn't make contact. Well, he did everything but. So why don't we have something here?
If he leaves the box over the plate, get it. Just get it. It's a lot easier to defend that being interference than that being not interference. I had one the other day where it's throw down a third, a back pick, and kid starts to back out of the box. It's pretty easy. So, Mike,
I have a quick question. Is that like on a fly ball, second baseman's going to catch it, runner is running to second, does not make contact, but he impedes the catch? That would be the same, and that does not need contact either.
that's going to be different in my opinion. Is he avoiding contact? I think on that we have to have contact, or
Okay.
A, yelling at him as we go by. I definitely don't think if he just runs near him, because if he's near the base, we have to get to the base, right? We just have to avoid contact in that situation. Catchers or interference, batter interference is different than runner's interference.
Right.
Runner interference, obviously we have force play slide rule. Obviously we have a whole bunch of different things that runners can do. But when it comes to fielding a batted ball, we have to do something, either intentional or create contact. It's like I had one where R2 and the runner runs by the shortstop and then stops and backs up on a slow chopper. So he gets a step by and stops and backs up in front of him and then waits and then goes in the last minute, right? Intentional. Or if I cause that fielder to do something different than he would have done had I not been there, then yes, I'm getting that. But otherwise, we got to run into him.
I'd say make
you.
it big. Just make it big if you're not gonna have contact.
Batter's interference with 2 outs or less than 2 outs. So that is dependent on rule sets. So MLB, I believe high school, there's a difference. And Jesse might be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe high school is the rule set that has with 2 outs, the runner, or with less than 2 outs, the batter's out, with 2 outs, the runner's out.
I know that's the major league set, but I'm honestly not sure on the high school set.
It's different like
rule
every set.
Major league rule set, the batter's always out unless it's a runner attempting to steal home.
Right. Yeah. Sorry about that. That's what I was meant to say. Yeah. You caught me there. Yep.
So with 2 outs and a runner stealing home, R3 is out on batter interference, and the batter would come back out every other time the batter's out. Cool. Thanks, Grant. So I had a batter interference on a strike 3 last week, and the Dakota Valley Del Rapids, and the Del Rapids coach tried to come out and tell me that I got it wrong after the fact because one of its parents looked it up. So I just said, I could be confusing my rule sets. I said, but the penalty for interference is always an out, and the batter can't be out twice because it was a strikeout throwdown. Looked it up, 601 AH, I think. If a runner or batter that has been put out interferes with the play, you have to get an additional out. The runner who the play is being made on is out. So in that situation, we have a strike 3, the batter's out for strike 3, and we have to have an out for the interference, which is the runner, which was R1 in this scenario, because we were attempting to put him out. So, unless anybody has any burning questions, I've got to jet to another meeting. Hopefully y'all got something out of this. So, have a good week. We're about halfway through the season.
I'm gonna stop the recording here.